So where do snake morphs come from? They're actually even found under a rock. So that's basically where base morphs come from. Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome to the vlog. I hope the start of your day is absolutely incredible. I'm going to come clean and be honest with you. It's like 6:30 at night here and I've been so busy that I've yet to pick up my vlog camera. One of the things I've been doing, which was really fun, is we filmed a really funny video with my son Noah that is going to be on his channel. I'll put the link in the description. You guys definitely want to check it out. It was a riot and I think that you guys are going to really enjoy it. So please show him some love and support and sub to him and all that stuff. Thank you guys so much. That being said, I didn't want to skip a vlog even though it's later at night, so I did have a couple things that I thought I would cover today. One, someone had asked me before, where do snakes come from, Brian? Well, in particular, where do snake morphs come from? And it's been a minute since I've talked about this topic, so I figured I would take you on a journey about one particular morph and how I was so fortunate to kind of develop the whole thing. I think that you guys will like the story and how I was so fortunate to be involved in developing that project. Also, someone had asked me, Brian, you always seem happy. Are you always happy? Are you ever unhappy? And listen guys, I am a person. Of course I'm unhappy at times. So later in the vlog, I'll kind of cover some of those things and tell you how I get through things. But for now, let's go ahead and just have an amazing time together and push all our problems aside for the rest of this vlog. What do you say we have a great day? Can you do me a favor and go down in those comments and tell me something awesome about yourself? Let me know how your day is because I love reading about you guys. I love interacting. You guys are so amazing. While you're down there, can you do me a favor and smash that like button? What do you say we just jump right into these topics? So where do snake morphs come from? I mean, do they just appear out of thin air? Now let me just break down a handful of things for you guys. First off, let's talk about ball pythons because they're extremely polymorphic, which just basically means there's a lot of colors and paint jobs and flavors. Ooh, what's going on, little buddy? And that is a great example where I can really break down and get into the meat of this topic. So let's start by saying that this happens to be a really beautiful animal and there's a lot of things going on. It's bamboo, it's Mojave, it's cinnamon, it's fire, all kinds of different stuff. But the truth is, no matter what ball python you have, whether it's something that's complicated like this with 4 or 5 genes, all the way to a normal ball python, they're the exact same snake, just have a different paint job on top of them. That makes them look different. Of course, we've talked about it before. The rarity of them changes the value of them and all kinds of stuff, but we're not going to get into any of that right now. The other thing I want to explain is that there's a difference between combination genes when you're taking, say, one mutation and another mutation, breeding them together and producing a new mutation. I'm not going to get too much into that when it comes to where those ones come from because they come from all over the place. I want to talk about base morphs. So where did they originate from, right? Because an animal that was, say, a bamboo didn't come out of nowhere. It originated with something. So I want to get into that. But before I get into that, I want to really quickly break down the simple genetics behind ball pythons and most snakes for that matter. And the way I want to get into that is to basically break down the 4 most common mutations in ball pythons and again, in a lot of other snakes too. And that would be codominant, incomplete dominant, recessive, and allelic. Let's go ahead and start with a codominant animal. Now, a codominant animal like this, which is a yellow-bellied ball python, just basically means that when I breed this yellow-bellied ball python to a normal or wild-type animal, about 50% on average are going to come out yellow-bellied. The codominant part means that there's actually a super version of the yellow-bellied, and that would be an ivory ball python. That's right, this white snake. Now, on average, 1 in 4 babies, when you breed a yellow-belly to yellow-belly, will come out this color right here, which is basically a white snake. And that's how codominance works. So you basically have about 50% of the animals will come out codominant, and then when you breed those two codominants together, about 1 in 4 babies come out a super. Now, ironically enough, when you breed a super to a normal, all of the babies will come out yellow belly, and when you breed a super to a yellow belly, on average 50% of the babies are going to come out white, so you double your odds. And that basically works the exact same way with all the codominant stuff. Pastels, cinnamon pastels, you name the morph, that's how codominant works. Then there's incomplete dominant, much like a spider ball python, and it acts just like a codominant animal in the sense that approximately 50% of the babies when bred to a normal or wild type will come out looking just like a spider, but the only difference is that there's not a super version. Well, with spiders it's kind of a little bit interesting because there is kind of a super version, but it's lethal. I've never produced one personally, but a lot of people when they breed spider to spider will produce kind of a whitish snake, but it always either dies in the egg or it never lives or something like that. So most people, myself included, consider spiders to be an incomplete dominant. So again, what happens when you breed them is that you're going to get about 50% of the babies that look like spiders, but you're never going to get a super version. Then there's a recessive mutation, which is just like this albino ball python. A piebald ball python would be the same, and lavenders, and on and on and on. What a recessive mutation means is that when I breed this to a normal wild type ball python, all of the babies are going to come out looking normal, but they're always going to carry the trait for albinism or whatever that recessive mutation is, which is what's called a heterozygous. Now, when you raise up those heterozygous and breed them together, it works much like a codominant, where approximately 1 in 4 babies will come out recessive. Also, when you breed that heterozygous to the homozygous or albino, approximately 50% of the babies come out albino and the other 50% carry the gene. So that basically is what a recessive is. And lastly, there's something that they call allelic, which basically just means that you need 2 different things to make something. Like this particular animal is a puma ball python. You need a yellow belly express, and you also need a spark in order to make a puma. Now, the reason they call it allelic and not say a double codominant is that you can't actually make a puma from a puma unless both the yellow belly and the spark are represented. So basically what happens is they share a protein on an allele, so it's a little bit different than, say, a double codominant, where you could breed a pastel to a spider and get a bumblebee, and then you can breed a bumblebee to a wild type and get more bumblebees. You can't breed a puma to a normal and ever get a puma. All you will get is sparks and yellow bellies. I know that's confusing, but that's what allelic is, so I wanted to just explain. Now that we have that kind of under our belt and we realize, all right, that is the way these mutations work. There's also polygenic and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into that. I want to get into the base morphs and where they're from. So when it comes to a base morph, like a piebald ball python or anything of that ilk, you can't just make one without having one. So you basically need a pied or a heterozygous or some sort of genetic pied in order to make another pied. So these guys don't just like pop up or they're manufactured. That's why they call them a base morph. That base morph came from somewhere. Now, most ball pythons come from Togo, Ghana, or Benin, the countries of West Africa, and the vast majority of those are actually either captive hatched in farms over in West Africa, or sometimes they're actually even found under a rock. You know, someone's out in the wild, they flip a thing and they go, oh my god, that's a beautiful animal, and then it eventually makes its way to the exporter and then to a guy like me. But basically, you need to have a base morph in order to continue to produce a base morph, or even using them for combinations to produce other mutations together. But without the base morph and the original animal, you can't make more of them. So that's basically where base morphs come from. And the same can be said for almost all base morphs. Take, for instance, the banana cinnamon. The banana and coral glow and the cinnamon all came from the wild. They were either captive hatched over in a farm over there, or again, they were found in the wild. And that basically is what happens. And then, of course, they contact people like me or whomever, and they eventually make it either into America or Europe or wherever they may go, and then someone proves them out whether they're either genetic or not. And trust me, there's been plenty of what we thought were base morphs that we brought in that turned out to not be genetic. So not every time you buy an interesting looking animal out of West Africa do you actually reproduce it. Now, it is certainly possible that someone produces a base morph from breeding 2 normal ball pythons or another type of ball python together and out pops it. It has happened before, but it is pretty rare. To be honest with you, it's only happened a handful of times, and the rest of them have come from the wild. And I've been so fortunate to be a person that has gotten a bunch of these base morphs out of the wild and eventually proved them out. But I want to take you a journey on one in particular that really ended up changing the whole direction of my life and was such an amazing experience, and I want to share that experience with you right now. And of course, I'm talking about the pinstripe ball python. And the pinstripe ball python falls into that category of the incomplete codominant, meaning that when you breed it, about half the babies are going to come out looking like pinstripe and the other half are going to be normal, and there's no super version. Now, of course, we didn't know that back then, and to start this journey, I have to take you back into the late 90s. Now, I was one of the first guys that kind of had boots on the ground over in West Africa. Again, Togo, Ghana, and Benin are where these animals are exported from, and I used to have people on the ground there that were looking out for really cool animals at the time. You got to remember, this is before they could email you a picture or text you a picture, so you really relying on people that were there to tell you what was going on. Now, to kind of put things into perspective a little bit, that part of Africa is about 6 or 7 hours ahead of us on time. So every morning at about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, when the sun was up and they were starting to check their eggs in the farms, or people were coming in from the villages to show them cool animals they had caught, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. So I would get a call almost every day at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, I've got this really cool ball python, we need to buy it, we need this. And it was always quite a trip for that 8 or 10 weeks during the hatch season over in West Africa. Nevertheless, again, because it was before emails and text messages, I had to rely on boots on the ground. Then one morning, I got a call from one of my guys, and he said that there was an amazing animal in a place called Abomey, Benin. And the guy over there, his name was Patrice. He was the big exporter, and he claimed that he had a really unusually colored and patterned ball python, and he wanted us to buy it, but he wanted $26,000. That's right, $26,000. And I was like, oh my God, that is a lot of money for a snake, especially back in the late 90s. But because he was so excited about it and said it was one of the most unusual ball pythons he had ever seen, I decided to have my guy go there. It was an 8-hour drive across Lomé, Togo, into Cotonou and up into Abomey. But I knew it was going to be worth it if the animal was that cool. And sure enough, about a day and a half later, I got a phone call in the middle of the night, of course, and said, Brian, this animal is absolutely amazing. And I said, is it $26,000 amazing? And he said, I don't know, Brian, that's a lot of money. It's up to you. And finally I said, if it was your money, would you buy that animal? You gotta keep in mind, there was no way for me to look and see what it looked like. I just went on complete faith. And he told me, you know what, Brian, I think I would go for it. So even though I was extremely nervous, I literally wired $26,000 over to Abomey to get that snake. Now I want you guys to understand that over in these countries, you do not trust anyone because they are always trying to rip you off. We've all gotten those emails. Please send me $10,000 and I'll give you $3 million in return, blah, blah, blah. It's much like that. So I was really reluctant, but I went ahead and did it. And it took about 2 weeks before it was actually going to be shipped. So for that 2 weeks, I was so nervous. And you got to remember, I didn't even know what the animal looked like. After several days of very little sleep and a lot of nervousness, finally the snake was supposed to be on a plane and on the way to Detroit, Michigan. I was so excited, but guess what happened? About 3 hours after the plane was supposed to leave, I get a call from Lomé, Togo, and it says, Brian, it didn't make the flight. It's sitting on the runway. And I said, what? My expensive snake is sitting on the runway? What the heck is going on? You better get there and get that snake and make sure that it doesn't die on the runway or even get stolen by someone. So my guy went and picked up the snake and thankfully got it on the next flight to me. And then it was a pretty tenuous 12 or 14 hours before I was able to go to the airport and finally see my beautiful new animal. I'll be honest, I never forget that feeling when I was finally driving to the airport. I was so nervous. I didn't know, did I do the right thing? Is it gonna make it here alive? Is it gonna be amazing? And finally I got to the airport. We cleared it through all of the Fish and Wildlife Customs. We opened up the bag and I was blown away. It was a little beautiful pinstripe ball python. The first time that anyone in the United States had ever laid eyes on a pinstripe ball python, and I was blown away. Now you have to remember, not only did I see the animal, but I had no idea what sex it was. It turned out that it was a male, but again, these were the very early days of ball pythons, and now, believe it or not, you can get a male and you can breed it within 5 or 6 months of birth. Once it gets up to about 500 grams, you can literally breed a male, but back then we thought it took at least 2 years, so that was 2 arduous years of raising up that male ball python, not knowing if it was going to be genetic whatsoever. When he finally got up to size, he bred 3 females that year, but I only got 2 clutches of eggs, and I'll never forget the first clutch of eggs that was due to hatch was 4 eggs, and I was so nervous. We were just starting to learn about co-dominant and incomplete dominant, because up until then, pretty much almost everything was just recessive, so I didn't know, could this possibly be a co-dominant animal or an incomplete dominant, or was I going to produce a bunch of normal babies that were heterozygous for pinstripe? I had no clue. When they finally got ready to hatch, there was 4 eggs left. I cut the first egg on day 57. It was a normal. The second egg was a normal. The third egg was a normal. And finally on the 4th egg, I cut the egg and I saw a little baby pinstripe. I flipped out. I was like, oh my God. And that was the very first base morph of ball python that I personally ever produced. Since then, I've been so fortunate to be involved in several other base morphs and a ton of combinations for the very first time, although I really don't keep track and it doesn't really matter to me that much. I just know that the Pinstripe in particular was extremely special because it was the first time that we branded a ball python, and it really changed the direction of BHB, and those were the early days of ball pythons. It was such an amazing feeling. But the truth is that all of those morphs, whether it's Pinstripe, Spider, Pastel, Cinnamon, Pied, you name the morph, they all started somewhere, and most of them started in the wild, whether they were captive produced from a farm over in West Africa or literally found in a hole or under a rock that a trapper found and eventually made it over to America or over to Europe where they were proven out. So that's basically where snake mutations come from. And now a quick real time for you guys. You know, of course I'm not happy all the time. That's not real life, people. I mean, there are things that come at me and it bums me out. Whether an animal isn't doing well, whether the drama of the internet, whatever it might be, there are things that drag me down. And some days it gets really difficult. I'm going to be totally honest with you, and I'm not playing the victim here. I'm just saying that as you grow a social media following, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, there's going to be a swelling of people that put you under a microscope, and they're going to do everything they can do to tear you down. It becomes relentless at times, and these people will say things about you that you would literally die against. The things that you are completely opposed to, they will accuse you of. But the truth is that yes, it drags me down. Yes, I'm a person. Yes, I care about what people think about me. But the fact is, people, and I hope this is going to help someone out, it's about how you deal with that adversity. I'm not going to say you can't wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, that's cyberbullying, it's so bad and I'm bummed out. But you have to eventually pull yourself up and get past it. You can't let the negativity bring you down. The truth is negativity always wins the short game, but positivity always wins the long game. So yes, I get bummed out at times. Yes, I wake up in mornings and don't think that it's worth all the effort that I put in, the 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes, I have those feelings, but then I make sure that they pass as quickly as possible, and I try to surround myself with people that are positive, and I push the negative away, and that's how I continue on. And that's why I continue to try to be inspirational and upbeat, and I do love life, and I always encourage you guys to love life and to follow your dreams, because trust me, along the way, people are going to try to stop you from achieving your dreams. They are going to be unhappy with what your success is because they're probably unhappy with their own life, and the only way they can feel better about themselves is to drag you down. And what you have to do is try to get past that and not let that happen. It catches me sometimes, people. There are times that Lori and my crew and my friends hear me complaining and self-pity, but then I realize to myself, I am the most blessed person. I've got to just rise above it, and I've got to just get past it and not let those people win. So I hope that you understand that yes, I'm a person and I have ups and downs. I just try my hardest to stay up, and I try my hardest to look at positive things, and I hope that you will too. And with that said, I am going to go ahead and end the vlog here. I hope that you've enjoyed this kind of history lesson of where snake morphs come from, and I hope that I've also inspired you to get past the negativity in life and believe in yourself and keep pushing forward. Thank you guys so much for your support. Your comments literally brighten my day every single day, and I love you guys so much for it. Can you do me a couple favors before we get out here? Can you smash that like button as well as turn those post notifications on so you know when I upload a video, which is every day, 7 days a week at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. Remember to be kind to someone today, and I promise I'm going to see you guys tomorrow.